with the 7 keys. It's quite original as a model, and I did appreciate it. I mean,
Yes, we can ask any questions and things. I'm hoping people have questions. I cannot see the chat. Do we have a chat? Where is the chat?
There's nothing in there
Chat
yet.
is silent. But anyone wishes to poke a question there, please do so. But I think, Himanshu, let us start, and Suzanne will come in, but let's see who we are, and I always feel the book club should be something with wine or tea or something, and so I really need to, that's mulled wine, was it?
Christmas hats today, here we go.
Ah, how nice. Oh, I don't know where mine is. I had to buy one yesterday. I was in Bournemouth yesterday. I had to buy one because I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't have an umbrella, so I bought a Father Christmas hat for the rain.
You're very naughty. You didn't give Nigel and I enough notice. Otherwise, we'd have liked to have met you for a socially distanced coffee.
Because of the lockdown. Doesn't matter. No worries.
Give us a little bit more notice next time. Tell us a few days before. And I was disappointed not to be able to meet you, and Nigel told me off today for not telling him. So
sorry, I didn't want to intrude. It doesn't matter. Let's come back to the book club. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, can I also just make a request?
Yes, please.
I think we have Himanshu, yourself, Nick, and Franco are all judges for the 13th of January. And yes. I don't know whether you've seen my email, Franco. I'd like a few more ladies on the panel. So I wonder would you agree to inviting Nadia and Carol if they'd like to join us?
Of course.
Yeah, just ask them. They're here, I think.
I just saw, yes. I don't know Carol. Obviously, I know Nadia. But we have an event on the 13th of January in the 5 o'clock till 7 o'clock. But there's some judging of projects and case studies. And I'd like to try and extend. How many have we got, Franco? Is it 10 so far? 10 judges?
10 so far, yes.
But I think we've only got 3 ladies.
But Shirley has mentioned a name, Kathy, but I do not know. I put the name Kathy. I do not know the surname, and I do not know whether she has accepted or not.
No, I don't know. Actually, I'll tell you what. I'll text Shirley now and ask her.
Okay. Himanshu, let us begin because we are going to soon run out of time and we won't have time to talk about the book itself, which is probably why we're here and yes, waiting for Suzanne. Yes.
Well, welcome everyone to the book club. This is our third session on this particular book, which is The Power of Project Leadership, the 7 keys to help you transform your project manager to project leader. So we will introduce ourselves in a minute. We are expecting Suzanne to come at 5:15, and then she will be answering our questions for about 40 minutes or so, and then we will disclose our next couple of books that we will be doing here. Nick, do you want to go through the ground rules?
Yes, can I see them or are they in front of me for me to just read them? Yes, we will have some introductions. Maybe we'll see in a moment anyone wants to introduce themselves. But when someone is speaking and asking a question, put it on the chat if you can so that Himanshu knows about it. Otherwise, raise your hand. Either we can see you or raise it your virtual hand. Questions, keep the question please brief. Do not give us a lecture while disguised as a question. I know there's quite a few lecturers in the room and all that, but try and make the question pertinent in some way as far as possible. We have never interrupted anyone actually from going on and on, because if we had, Himanshu would have interrupted me many times. So then any ideas, any discussions, just use the chat. And we are always hoping to be talking in between meetings about the books. But this is the last meeting of this book. And we haven't had a lot of discussions. We need to try and get that. I think that once we can get together and I bring a bottle of wine, there will be more talking between us. So these are essentially the ground rules. Himanshu, you have seen, is a member of PMI. I am a lecturer at the University of Westminster, and there's quite a few of us today. Shall we say something about ourselves, or shall I say something about the 7 keys? Let's try and meet at least any new member wishes to talk to us and say hello, please.
Yeah, so perhaps I can just say a couple of words. I'm Carol Muircroft. This is my very first time joining. I only realised or was it made aware of the book club quite recently, and I thought it was a real super idea. So I've only just recently joined, so I thought if I haven't read the book, I don't own the book yet, but I will definitely do it after the session. But I thought I would listen in and kind of see how it goes, and then from there kind of participate, you know, on an ongoing basis from here on in. So yeah, so hopefully that's okay. I wasn't quite sure how big or small the group would be, but I'm really kind of keen to listen in for this kind of first session, and then you know, obviously be more engaged then going forward from there. That's okay.
Lovely, and welcome. You are in good company in the sense that most of the audience has not read the book.
Okay.
But it is actually a nice book. I do like it, but there we go. That will come out in the wash, I hope. There's Suzanne.
Hey.
Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay, I think now that we've got Suzanne here with what could be a Christmas tree behind you, it looks like one. It does look, I am thinking of it as a Christmas tree, yes.
My Christmas tree looks a bit more Christmassy, but yeah, it's a plant that keeps growing.
Good for it. Let us jump then into a discussion of the book itself and try and ask you questions. We do not have a structure as such. We've been going through the book itself. We've been trying to understand or appreciate actually your 7 keys. We think they work very well, but I'm hoping we will ask you questions on the book, on the authorship and things like that, and try and get into, because we're a book club, try and get into the skin of the author, if you wish, and by association get some whatever knowledge imbibed into us. So thank you. I think Himanshu, can I start with a question, Himanshu, or something, some blubbering before I go too long? Only my microphone seems to be open.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Nick, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Suzanne, hello, welcome. I am hoping everybody knows you, and indeed they are here because of you. You have written this lovely book, and you've taken it into a 2nd edition, The Power of Project Leadership. And you started off with a workbook, which was a much more coaching book itself. But we can see the workbook inside these 2 editions here. And well done to translating it into Chinese. So now you will be influencing the new Silk Road also, or whatever. And thank you for that. But from the 1st to the 2nd edition, since we are talking about the power of project leadership, you have added quite a lot. You have added 30 pages. I was just looking from 270 to about 300 pages, essentially. That's the quantitative ideas. How did you go about that? Because I feel and I will say that the new edition is more mature than the first edition. Can you take us through sort of what influenced you? You do say something in the introduction, which is lovely, but could we hear it from you, sort of?
Of course, thank you, Nick. It's really good to hear your feedback, because of course some people read the first edition or the second edition. I don't think I get so much a perspective on the difference. Yes, there are extra pages added. I also removed some piece. I actually removed a piece about transaction analysis because I haven't been using it. So this brings me to how I came about to update what I did. And actually it's because I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5 years, but there's a significant amount of years in between. And in all of those years, I've been working as an independent project leadership coach. So when I wrote the first edition, I had actually my background in project management and program management and leading teams, but I had not been using it I had not been running leadership programs. So in all those 5 years, let's say in between the first and second edition, we were using it and we began to use it on programs. And I became very fortunate. I have a collaboration with a company in Holland. I've been doing a lot of work in the Netherlands. And they also brought some stuff in, and we've been 3 facilitators in a classroom because we've been running these big programs. We've educated now actually for this one company, 200 very, very senior project and program managers. I know it's not 2,000, but actually 200 is a lot, because on each cohort we have just between 15 and 20 people. So we've been running 9 cohorts, and now they've stopped because of COVID. But 9 cohorts, we see them in module 1, module 2, module 3. Module 1 is a deep personal dive where we look inwards. We look at what's your personal timeline? What has made you the leader you are today? What are the significant events in your life that have impacted your leadership style? And we look at so many deep things. And then module 2, we go to leading teams. Module 3 is a simulation where we use actors. So just the acting in itself has taught me a lot about how to observe behavior, how to give feedback on behavior, and how we communicate. And I've seen project managers tense up when the actor plays that client of theirs or that team member who they can't get to delegate to, or whatever it is. And I've learned so much from it. So it actually was very easy to figure out what to put in the second edition, because it's all the stuff we've been seeing and using in those years. And I'm glad you say, of course, that it's a more mature edition, because I edited so much of the remaining book. And my goal was, I don't know if this really happened, but my goal was to add more personal stuff in there about my own examples. So that's a little bit about how I went about it.
Indeed, and reading the book itself, what I feel has happened is that you have instinctively written the first edition of the book because of your background and because of the urge to write it, and sort of you found also a gap in the market, in the sense that you wanted to coach, to actually somehow improve people. So it is, the coach does come out of the book itself, and I think that is what makes it different. And I feel that in the second edition, what you have done is what you were doing instinctively. You have now found the theory that sort of explains it, and that is so you've brought in quite a lot of what we call theory in class when we teach, to give an explanation to why what you've been saying is actually works. And this is what I liked reading the edition more carefully, because I had to face you today and all that. And you've come up with the emotional thing and all that, but the main thing is, so that this doesn't become a personal conversation, the main thing is these 7 keys that you have latched on and you are proposing. I like each one of them, and I also like the way that you present them, where the key is presented, the frameworks, the actual additional comments from other people, I think are fantastic. Usually one does not read the panels of books, especially of academic books. But here, the panels, the choice of words that you have put in the places that you have put them, I think actually add kudos or whatever to the statements themselves. And then in the end, you've got exercises and actually telling us how to actually do things. And I must confess, and I think there's 2 or 3 other people in this room, I must confess that I am not someone who opens up to coaching. I find it, I don't know, I prefer teaching from coaching, if you know what. And I never used to answer questions when the teachers used to ask questions in class. I was thinking, I hope it doesn't pick me to answer or something. And yet, when I look at this, I look at it introvertly because I'm reading it. I have seen you coaching, but I haven't sat in your class as a student myself. I feel that these are very, very well selected, the choices of the exercises and the questions that you pose to each person, I think. But enough praise. You've got the 7 keys, and let me read them because there are a few people who are still struggling with the book and trying to find the book. Let me just read them. Be authentic, lead with vision, improve and innovate, empower the team, build trust with stakeholders, use powerful techniques, and work with intent. Now, out of these, the inevitable questions, since nobody else is asking questions, the inevitable question is, why did you sequence them in that way? Sort of, they seem to be building into each other. I like that, but I'd like your thoughts, sort of. Why is number one in effect?
Well, number one is, and I must say, it's really hard to pick out. And this work obviously goes back many years because the keys haven't really changed from the first to the second edition, apart from a few renamings. So that thought process goes back many years. And I must say, I think it's not, this is not an exact science, but I felt very clearly that this is not a project management book. And I didn't want this to be about the tools and the techniques, but tools and techniques are still a part of it, because you cannot be a project leader without also understanding planning and risk management. It has to be said. And so I clearly wanted that to be one of the keys, but I didn't want it to be the primary key. So that's why it is one of the keys, key number 6.
But it is, yes, 6.
And also key number 7, just to start from the back, is because, well, working with intent is really about my time management, it's about my self-management, it's also about my discipline, it's about how I manage my energy also. I've added a bit more about that in stress management in the second edition. That is also important. We can't, again, just be a project leader in this sort of box and just say, oh, I've got some tools. No, you come as a full, entire person. And how you manage your time is important. Otherwise, you're not going to get to the important stuff. Are you just working on what's urgent? Or are you working on what's important? So I also wanted that element in there, but it's not the primary thing. So they came at the end. And then I felt, well, being authentic, which is key number 1, I wanted something to the effect of authenticity. I debated a lot what to call it, because there are many other virtues that one could have put there. But I think the whole book is trying to ease out or tease out of the reader what is really true for you. Is project leadership true for you? And that's why before the 7 keys, there's actually a whole chapter on what drives you, what motivates you, which is a lot of coaching and psychology in there. So being authentic is important, because if you can't be a good leader if you are emulating somebody else, you can't be a good leader if what you think, feel, say, and do are not in alignment, then you're not going to be effective. Then people are not going to follow you. So I wanted that to be the foundation on which we build some of the tools and techniques. Mm-hmm. And then I had some keys that were given. Okay, so leading the team and leading stakeholders, that's just the 2 huge topics, because Mostly we either are leading the team or we're leading the stakeholders and the clients. And that's a lot about interactions, it's about high performing teams, it's about all that emotional intelligence and listening and asking questions and the different leadership styles. So they're huge building blocks, and they're two very big keys that are fundamental to the whole work. And then I find, and I've been talking a lot about this, the gap that there is in the market where project managers are just executors. So they are just doing a project because they're being told to do a project. They don't have the business knowledge to challenge the decisions because they're not at the decision-making table. And this is a piece I find so fundamental, and a difference between project managers and project leaders. Project leaders step up, they're at the table, and this is where the second key, lead with vision, comes in. Because if I don't understand the business context, if I don't understand the business case, then I cannot be making the effective decisions, then I cannot be motivating the team, then I cannot be challenging my stakeholder or holding my client to account to that which is most important to them. So key number 2, lead with vision, I was crystal clear, I needed something to that effect. We're not talking about junior managers who just execute. We're talking about somebody who's at par with the client, who can have those strategic conversations. They may not be the decision maker of the business case, but they at least can understand it and help partner around it. So key number 2 was also very given. And then I have the last key I haven't mentioned yet is key number 3, which is to innovate, to improve and innovate. And I spent so much time researching it for the first edition. I didn't actually update it for the second edition, but this is a massive part, which is not unique to projects. So a lot of this is not unique to projects. Improve and innovate also you could find in a non-project environment. And again, I'm trying to go away from that project manager who just executes. We've got to improve. We've got to help, and it actually fits in with leading the team as well, because if you want the best of your team, you've got to empower them to think the decisions. You can't have the project manager or the project leader trying to figure out everything and trying to figure out how to deliver things, what to deliver, what technical solutions we need. We need the team. We need to empower the team to help us make those decisions and to improve and innovate. So I really felt strongly that should be in there. And that is not typical for any project management book, for sure. So I'm hurting, I'm speaking so much now.
No, but everything you say is beautiful because we do get the insight. As I was reading the book, I felt it was resonating quite a lot with what with the Project Management Institute's talent triangle, and we've got members of PMI, and indeed we have advertised the book club is sort of adopted by PMI. So I'd like to sort of put a question like that. The triangle, the talent triangle that PMI has produced, it does have the leadership side, it does have the management side, and it does have the business environment side. And you appear to be covering all three. You haven't thrown anything out. You have not thrown the baby out, which is key 6, sort of the planning part, what I would say the boring part, let us say, the managerial part. Yes, and you have captured the leadership bit, and I feel very comfortable with that, the way that the keys are there, and I can see balance. I can also see a balance with the emotional stuff, Goldman's work, and I feel that your keys are moving from the personal to the more the social part, which is almost the process of Goldman, from the individual to society, essentially. And I felt that your book was itself going that way. Whether that was subconsciously done or not, I cannot tell. But it is beautiful that you had this discussion, and I liked the fact that you started from the last one backwards and all that. Indeed, I have to teach my students today. We always do the managerial before the leadership stuff to our students, But this year, because of COVID, we've got a class that is coming in January, which is new to us. My course leader is in the room. And therefore, they will be taught leadership before they are taught management, in a sense. And that is an experiment. And I take courage from your book, actually, that I can do that. I can make them leaders while they're becoming managers, as opposed to making them managers and then leaders. So thank you for that. I am not seeing any other questions, which means that people like what you're saying.
Well, I can comment on the last piece you said there about what comes first. I think you can do it both ways around. The real difference for me is the awareness and the consciousness. Because if you do the leadership piece first, it is impossible to do the leadership piece without looking inwards, for me anyway, and without being more conscious about how I come across and what is my effect on others. And if we start with that background, I think we're also putting more consciousness and awareness into the management piece. And that's really when it becomes an art rather than a science. I know I'm using big words here, but because planning isn't just planning, risk management isn't just risk management. It is also that awareness of how am I using it? When am I using it? So I think it can have a big benefit to do it after.
Indeed. We do not know. There are actually two schools of thought. And it is the British school of thought that says that you become a manager, you become a leader essentially, and then you can learn the simple techniques of whatever it is you are on. While there is the more American school of thought that says you need the techniques, you need to become a manager, and then you elevate yourself into leadership. I'm not sure. I'm a foreigner, so I don't know if it's the Americans or the English who are more correct in that. And I love the fact that the Dutch love project management as it is. You yourself, you are from next door, from Holland. You are Danish. I'm just saying that for your readers. And I was in Holland actually last month to do a case study, because my brother is doing work there as a project and all that. And it is fascinating to see how you can see projects actually developing. It is such a flat land, Holland. So it is, everything they do is visible. Even their houses are visible, actually. And I think that makes them like this confluence of management and leadership getting together. So it's nice to see that they're working with you and essentially influencing the book. If we go to the keys one by one, the authentic key, I think you mentioned this is fundamental in itself. Can you give us a bit more of that authenticity? Because as you were talking, I was thinking about the British Prime Minister, actually, as a counter example of authenticity in a sense. And I'm always afraid of the ethical question, in that what happens if you are authentic towards a bad idea as opposed to authentic towards a good idea? If your worldview is to damage the world because I don't know, I am better than you, something like that. How does that work? And because leadership and responsibility, we do have responsible project management people in the room also. So how do we reconcile that as a coach, sort of? If the authenticity is negative, is that a good thing?
I think there's one can misuse the word authentic by saying, oh, well, I did something because it felt right to me. I'm authentic to my own ideas. So yes. I punched him or whatever. I felt like punching him, so I punched him. I'm using an extreme example, but essentially, I think some people would use it that way and say, yeah, but I'm authentic. This feels right to me. You know, what I thought and felt was I did it, you know, but that's not really what we mean by authentic. That's misunderstood authenticity, because in authenticity, there is exactly what you're referring to. There is the what was the word you used? ethical. There is a question of ethics too, which is doing the right thing. And you can then argue what is the right thing, but if, you know, it has to be moving, because we're talking project management and project leadership, it is about doing what is right for adding value to that project or what you're doing. Now, I actually have an example in the book, which is if a project manager is working for a client who they believe is not acting ethically in the marketplace, then there would be no alignment in that project manager or project leader in the terms that they would feel that this is a bad product or service that we're working on. This is not right what we're doing here. But they will still be doing it because they're worried they're going to lose their job or something like that. And for me, that is not authentic. We might need to do something in the short term to put food on the table, but to be a true leader, we have to follow those feelings we get from ourselves. And I think I do hear people say, I'm not happy with where I'm working because they're exploiting people, or because they're working on products and services that I feel are not, that are, you know, just out there to, you know what I'm trying to say, bad products and services that are not actually furthering where we are on the planet. And what mostly happens is that these people will look for another job, and I think they should, because how can you try to motivate a team? How can you make the right decisions for the client? You can't even serve the client if you feel that you're not working with something that's ethical. So am I answering your question, Nick?
I believe so. My question was so convoluted.
You talk about the bad side.
It is the ethics, yes, and because I find the link between the first the authenticity and the building trust, and with you say with stakeholders, but for me stakeholder is quite a very wide thing, and that is what makes me understand that authentic will gain trust. And therefore, that authenticity has to be ethical, because trust on something unethical is I don't think it works. We wouldn't be human if that worked. So I see that transition. That's why. So the authentic, we have to clarify that with our students. It is good that you are taking it as self-evident, essentially, and you've got the example that authentic means you must have some principles, essentially. And
yeah, and it's not easy, because I think in theory it can be quite easy to talk about, but in practical terms, it also means being able to say no when something is not right. And we know that many people, and I'm not particularly good at saying no, but I have on projects, I think it's been easier for me. I've said no to certain things that I felt were not right. I remember we had an internal project sponsor once, and we were asked to develop these products. This was investment products twice. And after 3 months, the team was working on it. The project got cancelled because the market opportunity disappeared. And that happened twice. And the third time I said the third time it happened, like it was about every 6 months or every 12 months, you know, oh, we need to develop this product. But because it takes a certain amount of time to develop it, by the time we developed it, the market opportunity was no longer there. The third time I said, no, I'm not telling my team to do that. And this was a new sponsor. He was not aware what his predecessor had done or requested. And I said, no, we're not doing it because so-and-so. And he's like, how outrageous somebody could. And I said, yeah, but you know, we're wasting money, we're wasting time. It's going to be canceled in 3 months. And that's also, I think, being authentic. I'm lucky I'm picking on an example that I think is worthy, but there's so many other examples for myself, probably where I didn't stand up and where I wasn't authentic. But I think it's a good thing to work towards.
Indeed, and we are full of regrets of the things we didn't do at the time. We should have done them. That is part, I think, of authenticity in itself and of improving it. And you've got that example, but I think you've got it as something where you were protecting your team more than I think it is. I'm guessing, but I think it was in the fourth key where you were empowering your team and you were protecting them from this we're working, and then suddenly it disappears because the business case disappears and all that. And it is a nice, you haven't put many of your stories in, but that one is in there. Sort of, there's a lot of you in the beginning of the book, in the introduction, and but then that is, I think, the only vignette you've got about yourself halfway through the book. I'm not sure. Yes, the me thing.
I forgot I mentioned it actually, but yeah, some things just stand out so much that you feel it fits in there.
Indeed.
We have a question from a reader.
Yes.
Mikhail asks, when you are new to a project role or company, what steps would you advise one take to become a leader rather than a manager without coming across overconfident?
What steps would I advise somebody takes to become a leader? I would say the leadership aspects is in how we relate to others. So I would say it's in so a big part of the book goes through, as Nick briefly mentioned, emotional intelligence. And if we act from a place of authenticity, I don't think we would come across as overconfident, because it could almost be the opposite. If we start just with that project, like a project manager or manager, a manager in the worst sense of the word could make lots of assumptions about this is what needs to be done, need to be able to plan, need to delegate. I'm doing a bad, because management is not bad, right? But that could actually be seen as being a bit overconfident. But for me, the leadership is actually quite a humble role, because as a leader, I'm saying, I don't know all the answers. As a good leader, I'm saying, I don't know all the answers. I need you to help me, because we're a team. And a good leader can listen and will ask lots of questions, whereas a manager can be one of those who just wants to hear themselves speak. Actually, I often refer to another book, which is called Multipliers. And in that book, the author describes what a multiplier leader is somebody who multiplies the smarts of others. Whereas a diminisher is that kind of manager who puts other people down, because listen to me, I have all the great ideas. This is how we should do it. So I think that potentially is more likely to see that as overconfident or arrogant. Liz Wiseman is the author of Multipliers. It's a few years old now. She's written other books since, but she's got really clear examples of that diminishing management role versus that multiplier of a leader role.
And I think, Suzanne, your chapter 4 of the book also gives a good starting point towards this, making the transition, how to put these 7 keys into practice.
Would Mikhail want to come back or say something?
Thank you, Suzanne, for answering my question. That was a really good answer. I'll definitely take that forward as well. So thank you very much. So
yeah, I think I can become much more specific, because I know that I've written blog posts on what steps to take in the first
yes.
three months to become a leader. And I would say that it's really about listening. It's also about asking the right questions, such as why we're doing this project, and engaging with the stakeholders. So lots of asking, and you must remember that asking for feedback, I always want to put this in, asking for feedback is a real leadership. It's a real act of leadership, because we courageously ask for feedback from others.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to be purchasing your book as well. I've just taken some notes from what you were saying earlier. So it's about how you're relating to others, being humble, listening, asking questions, and becoming a multiplier with other people's talents and skills, what they have to offer as well.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I will be recommending it in class. I think Mikhail is one of my new students, but I haven't seen my students. We are on lockdown.
Of course, yeah.
So I don't know faces or anything. But I think the question this about coming across overconfident was really the fear of Mikhail. On the other hand, I think that you will end up with a better plan, which is a management thing, if you get your team to help you produce the plan. Indeed, lead them to produce the plan. So I think when it comes to planning, the leadership and the management actually become one, and that is the point.
And this is one of the areas that I think where we've seen the most development in the last 10, 15 years, because when I started out as a project manager, and what was the view of project management is, you're the project manager, it's your responsibility to plan the project. You get Microsoft project to plan it in. And of course, you can go back and ask your team members for feedback, but essentially you are responsible. I'm doing it. It's not collaborative, really. I'm doing it. And that is how I started out my career. But today it is actually really good to see that in many organizations, especially those with younger staff and those that are more kind of using cloud-based software, although I must say it's not about the software, but if you have the right kind of software, it enables others also to share and to take part ownership of the plan, because it can be updated by multiple people. So, and I think also Agile has some part in that, because Agile is really collaborative, and so you plan together.
Yes, very much so. That point is clear, because essentially Agile, which I still think came from the software development side, remember that there is a user. We are actually producing something for a user to actually use, and we had forgotten totally to ask the user, or to tell the what exactly did they want. We imposed on the user what we thought was interesting, and because we probably were nerds ourselves, sort of pressing 3 buttons, Alt, Control, Delete, for example, we found is a natural thing to do, as opposed to asking the user, says, I never remember which buttons to press, or something like that. So Agile, yes, Agile is imbibed, I think, and has led us to appreciating leadership. Key number 2, sorry, you were going to say something.
No,
I beg your pardon. Key number 2 is lead with vision. And here you've got all the benefits of leading with vision, figure 3.2.4, page 102. And essentially, you're going through it. And what I see here is that your vision has to resonate with the organization's vision. I think that becomes clear with the steps, because you are able to validate the business case, to make better decisions, to deliver the business case. But the business case itself probably comes from the organization in a sense. It is part of the strategy. And would you say that is a correct point, that the project manager, when we are leading with vision, we are really saying we are resonating with the vision of the strategy, as opposed to our vision?
Yeah, I think something that I don't actually make a big point out in the book is that there are, of course, 2 fundamentally different types of projects. There are tactical ones and there are strategic ones. When we have tactical projects, it's stuff that we figure out needs fixing, and the business is not a huge, it's often something that's broken, and so we need to fix it. And in those cases, there is no big singing and dancing business case that needs to align with anything. What will happen in those cases is that the team will go out and probably find the sponsor, find money to do the work. But more what I think we're referring to here, and what you were just mentioning, is those strategic projects where we want to get to somewhere new. We're introducing a strategic change. And the idea with the business case being lined up more with the organization is just, and this is, let's say it's an internal project, it would be the organization's business case. Simply because if it's not lined up, how can we be sure it's not going to get cancelled? How can we be sure that our project is contributing to the direction of the organization? We can't. So actually, even when I worked in my last corporate role, which is now 8 years since I stepped out and became independent, you could not physically in the system set up a project or a program that did not come from the top. So what happened was that the organization would say, these are our strategic objectives for the year. And then you would get from there the strategic programs for the year. And then from there, you would get the strategic projects for the year. So you couldn't have a project code and set up your project without actually it being aligned to a strategic objective. So it doesn't mean that your project will survive, but there is a higher likelihood that it will be aligned. So it's for that reason, Nick. If we just come up with a great idea and we start going in a direction and the CEO later finds out, but that's not contributing to where we want this organization to go, then there is no alignment. So that's why the alignment should be there.
I find it extremely interesting because you are actually resonating with our previous book, inspired by Marty Kagan.
I was going to say,
who, when he came up with product, he's creating how to create technical products customers love. He was almost going not against the organization, but was saying the organization that listens to and creates strategy from below is actually more prone to success. And he almost disliked that top-down idea that you just mentioned exists. Not you didn't promote it, you mentioned that is. And I find that fascinating that there is this congruence of ideas. And I think this is what we're doing to project management in the 21st century. We are coming up with a business case, but then we are actually adjusting that business case quite a lot. And you do have another diagram on page 112 where you do have explicitly the two triangles, the tactical one. I like the use of tactical because it has disappeared from the vocabulary. Everything is strategic now. And got operational or strategic, and tactical has disappeared. So I love the fact that you use that word here. And you've got the technical, essentially the iron triangle of to budget, time, etc. And then you've got this strategic thing, which has the effect, the relevance, and the sustainability. And I love whenever I see the word sustainability now, because now we are working towards that. And I think it is fascinating in the pandemic, where we have been forced to go back to first principles, that somehow, yes, there's this the triangle itself, that we are realizing we have to be more responsible. I hope we do not forget it. Because again, as I said, for me, sustainability and responsibility are like synonyms, like brothers. So thank you very much for that.
It's interesting, if I may interject there, that sustainability, since this was written in the first edition, has become such thankfully, a much bigger topic. It's just interesting because you say you want to get under the skin here with me. So I can tell you that I presented in Dubai, I think exactly 2 years ago. And I had this triangle as part of my presentation. And I was the first presenter on a Monday morning. It's huge down there. It was a huge conference. Anyway, so at 10 p.m., I was just about to shut everything off. At 10 p.m., I get an email saying, can I change the slide? Because it's a Jewish star.
I thought I was actually not going to say that it looks like a Pendalfa. Yes, and I said, no, that cannot have happened. You're actually saying it did happen.
Yeah. In the 11th hour, I changed it. So, yeah.
Indeed.
Anyway.
Symbols are important, and yes. But yes, good. Now I can say it happened instead of claiming that. And you did, I presume, change it. This is actually quite a point here, because that meant, did you stop being authentic, sort of the organization? You've got a moment here where the organization is telling you something that is clearly not what you are seeing.
Yeah.
But I also suspect it's easy to change it.
It was easy to change. Instead of a triangle, I just had 3 points. It was not a big deal. But I was surprised that had my slides for a long time. So clearly somebody had looked at them in the last minute. you know, I wasn't impressed, but it was fine. It wasn't a big deal.
Oh, yes. It is actually a small point in the end, as such, but sensitivities. Thank you for that point. Then key 3 is, I think, a straightforward key: improve and innovate. Essentially, the status quo is not an option. Where do you think innovation is taking us now? Sort of. Do you think that because of the technologies that we have created now, yes, we're using the technology at this moment to our advantage. That is, we are meeting with people we couldn't meet, and we're having a discussion. So that is an advantage. But the technologies themselves, they seem to be moving quite fast. We are talking, for example, about nuclear energy plants as clean energy. That was not what it was called when I was a student. It was actually the dirtiest at that time. And suddenly it has no CO2, therefore it is clean. Do you feel technology, sort of this innovation, is a good idea, or is it an inevitable thing to do?
I think it's inevitable. I think it's inevitable, and I don't know if we're getting into more of a philosophical conversation here, but the way I see it, and I talk a lot about stress management, and just before this call, I was doing a presentation on well-being, and actually everything is moving faster and faster, and we are seeing more and more change, more and more competition, more and more of everything, rapid deadlines, more, you know. And all of that is putting pressure on, and I think everything will continue to move faster. And actually, I think we probably have gotten to a pace where the human brain almost can't follow it anymore, because there's so much change happening. So then the machines will overtake us, because not I don't mean as in being human, but as in, you know, they can calculate things quicker than we can. So that's the efficiency gain, isn't it? We can't be more efficient, perhaps, but they can. So as long as competition exists and we will continue to measure things by cost, then I think technological innovation will continue to happen. I think it's inevitable. I do have another point, actually, which goes back to your previous comment about the bottom-up approach of innovation, because I hear quite regularly that those organizations that survive, they are actually the ones who know that innovation comes from everybody within the organization. I don't think it's the same as strategy, though. I think you said the organization needs to have a strategy, but how to get there and what products to develop or how to become more efficient, all of those ideas, people have those ideas. So it is actually, just linking back to what you said before, very interesting how those organizations listen. They listen to their employees, and they start a lot of projects. We're starting a new program for a technical organization. They produce microchips. It's a big organization. And we've been interviewing all the project managers now before they go on the leadership program. We haven't started the actual program yet. And so it's interesting when you get to know a new organization, because what's so clear from this organization is how pressured they are, how they say they're replanning their projects every day, how many projects get canceled. And the thing is, because they're very innovative, so they start a whole array of projects because they have a lot of good ideas, and then they funnel them. Then they cancel the ones that are leading nowhere, and it's very frustrating for the teams. But it means that they're ending up with some really good ideas because they start a lot of projects based on good ideas. So that was just another comment there.
Indeed, yes, and that brings us back actually to your point of agile, being agile, because if ideas do come from the bottom, by definition, these ideas will not all be good, and therefore this lean idea of failing fast, failing frequently, failing fast is becoming part of the process or the strategy. And I think that is where we are going with. That is, we are seeing that the successful companies have understood that there will be a lot of failures, And then the point is for someone like you as a coach to put in essentially the psychological factor that failure is in itself progress. It is not failure as we feel that I failed, therefore it is bad. I have failed 99 times but the 100th time the good idea came up, and that's it. That is.
I think what part of the problem is that if you have a project team and they're being told to hit deadlines and to make it happen and to make it happen quick and to resource their projects and they're ramping up and they're doing the best they can, and then the project gets cancelled, I think that's really hard because we build our identity around, we really made it happen. We worked long hours and we worked on weekends and then it gets cancelled. That's not the same as to say, oh, you're learning from it didn't work technically.
Indeed.
And it's quite sensitive because teams get attached.
Of course they do. Of course they do. But I think it's like the Premiership in football, where even the best teams will lose a few games. You get attached to the game, but then overall, you're trying to win the championship. I think that philosophy. Franco has made the point. I don't know, Franco, would you like to make that point? I'm conscious we're just after 6 o'clock. Franco, would you like Himanshu to read the point? Or
there was the consideration regarding the environment that is changing extremely rapidly this way. And my comment is that the project manager is particularly fit for a changing environment, since by nature is working in a fluid state. He's the player that put things in order. I remember that, I was having several project managers that were coming to me claiming or complaining that things were not good, that they were facing a continuous change. And I said, listen, maybe you have not understood. In the companies that are run by individuals, there is a lot of movement, confusion, what to do. And therefore, the management is saying that, well, I have one idea. Let's create a job that we call project manager to put things in order. So you are paid to fulfill that role. By nature, it is the job to put the chaos in order. This is the challenging, and also I found the interesting part of the job, I would say, was also the motivation for which I started this career.
Wonderful, wonderful comment. And I think many people do forget that. Yeah. So, and I think there's also two extremes, because when you have too much change and too much chaos, maybe we don't build momentum. But of course, projects are all about change. Wonderful.
Not only, the second thing that in the mentality of the project manager is quite different from the other is that everything has a start and one end. If you get a job in a post office or you make the doctor, you are not having this. In general, in all the profession, there is the continuity, and there is also one expectation that is stabilizing the individual. But in the project management, you have to get acquainted to the fact that there is a start and ending. And this is, for many people, is a shock, because it implies uncertainty, of course, the fluidity.
Very true.
Indeed, and it is that fluidity that I think it makes a book like yours, Suzanne, quite necessary, because it does make us think as leaders to continuously that we are in this fluid environment. By definition, we are actually part of the fluidity in a sense, because we are delivering the change, and that ability, the way that you take us from managers and making us into leaders, I think is beautiful. We have covered 3 out of 7 keys, which is typical of me. I never finish whatever I start within the time. I actually blame the time estimate myself, it doesn't matter. And I am hoping that our audience will be taking the book and reading it. We do have evidence that people have bought the book as part of this discussion. There we go. And so that is good for the author. But if I may, please, and before Himanshu gives us the future, 2021, would you like to make any closing comments? Any ideas to maybe some of my students who are here, or something that would you like to say? Have the last word, essentially.
I just want to thank everybody for listening in. If any of you are Polish, then it's also being translated into Polish if you don't speak Chinese or English. No, I guess just maybe, you know, things are a bit grim at the moment for some people, but remember there are opportunities in all crises. There are opportunities, and this is also the leaders' role to help others see the opportunities. We can always grow and develop. So even if you have to sit and study from home, make the most of it. You don't have to get out in the rain, you know. And Merry Christmas, everybody. And if you want a part 2 to cover the rest of the keys, I'll be more than happy, you know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope we'll manage to get you in to talk to our students as you do. Nadia, the course leader, is here. I'm sure she'll negotiate something for your time. I thank you very much personally. I thank you also for the opportunity that I had to reread the book in itself. It is one of these books that becomes better on the second reading, I think. Thank you very, very much. Let me shut up.
No, thank you. Thank you again, Susan. One question. Are you planning an audiobook for this?
I have been asked that before, and I have looked into it. However, the unit price for audiobooks is so low. And if you look at the cost of creating an audiobook, I'm afraid that the business case might not be there. But if I get anyone volunteering to record it with their voice, they're more than happy. But actually, it's just a big effort. I wish I could say yes, but I'm not so sure.
Karen, I sense a student project here. We can get some funding to get some actor students to.
Oh, you can be a project. You're welcome to use it. A different student reads a different chapter.
My favorite chapter will. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Well, thank you again, everyone, for this evening. I think it was a very engaging discussion. Just before we finish, I would like to announce the 2 next books that we are going to do. So the next, well, we have a comment in chat before I did that. Okay, that was a thanks. So the next book is Lazy Project Manager, our Peter Taylor. The dates are here, and these are confirmed dates. You will hear about these on LinkedIn again. And the book after that will be a book called Hooked. It is again about building habit-forming products by Nir Eyal. And I met Nir at a conference, and we struck up a good conversation about product management in general. And this is the result. The dates over here are not finalized because apparently there is some travel issue coming up on 1st of April. So we may just prepone it by a week. But again, you will get to know that. So that's thank you from the PM Club, and happy Christmas and happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Happy
Thank you,
holidays.
Merry
Suzanne. Thank you,
Christmas and
Suzanne.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great festive season. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.